Welcome to the Lawyer Life Podcast, where we work to navigate our days with a little less stress and ideally a lot more fulfillment. In this season 3, we focus on small and big changes that will advance our well-being, personal and professional lives. In today's episode, we discuss the power of relationships. We're asking ourselves, how do we foster and benefit from the most important part of our lives? I'm Mike Anderson.
And I'm Darlene Tonelli.
Hello, Darlene. Oh, we timed it perfectly again. That makes me so satisfied.
You know what? I was
so satisfied.
It's so good. And the other thing is that music, that really just gets me in the mood for this podcast chat. Kudos to Nick, who wrote our music. He's amazing. And just the right vibe to kind of get excited about talking about self-improvement. Right?
Bing, 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 bing.
He's got a lot of talent, that guy. He wrote we found him partially because he wrote some theme songs for some television shows that you've probably heard. And he's just, he's got a lot of talent, and he inspires us as a creator. When we were coming up with this podcast, trying to decide what we were going to create ourselves as we dipped our toe in this water, it was just, it was cool that he was like, yeah, do a lawyer podcast. Let me get you some music.
Music is so important. Yesterday morning, the time change has been just bad in my family home and our ability to sleep. And so my son, who is 6 months, so he woke up super early and he was just partying, like legs going nuts and screaming and yelling and having a good time. And I wanted to get him calmed down. I was like, what do we do? And I just pulled out my phone, hopped on my streaming platform and put on some background kids music. Bam, falls asleep almost immediately. That calming music element did it for him. Music is so powerful, and increasingly I'm understanding and believing this. I've always been a huge music fan, but oh my goodness, what a powerful thing.
So so funny you mentioned that, because it's party time at my house too with daylight savings time. And for people who don't, I think daylight savings time is it's Canadian thing, North American thing.
No, there's a lot of jurisdictions that do it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of Northern Hemisphere.
Okay. Anyway, It's a real pain when you have little kids that are, otherwise have a good sleep schedule. So anyway, it's a bit of a bummer. But at my house, my son is obsessed with the song Old Town Road. Lil Nas and
my daughter was too.
Yeah, this is a big thing. Then it plays on repeat, and if I can play that thing on repeat, we can have a peaceful time around the house.
Right.
So that's what was going on this morning. I probably have listened to that song 14 15 times already.
Yeah.
So it's definitely party time.
And it's snowing. It is becoming winter. It is winter.
Yeah. Snow pants this morning for the kids. Yeah, good times.
We're into it. Anyway, first of all, we have to be accountable to you, the listener, and follow up on our challenges from the last episode. So we had to do 3 things. Determine the things that waste your time. Eliminate the thing that wastes your time the most. And notice when you ruminate. Darlene, do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. So many things waste my time. That's the short answer.
Yeah,
when you ask yourself this question, it's really amazing where you're like, wow, that wastes my time. Wow, that wastes my time. And so many of the things I'm in full control of. And I would say from a lawyerly perspective, and for any busy professional really, the thing that I really noticed this week is that this reactive email behavior that we talked about last week, what a time waster. I sometimes will be working on something, get an urgent email or something that feels pressing. Go look at that for a second. Go back to the other thing. And at the end of the day, I don't know if this happens to you, I've got 5 windows open of nothing is done. And they're all in various states of response. Those are on very stressful days where a call, for example, you're working on an agreement and a call is scheduled. So you have to do the call and then you're going to go back to the agreement. And then, what a waste of time. I don't know how to solve that problem. So I thought that maybe for our third part of this season where we talk about the productivity hacks, I would like to ask or consider if anyone knows an expert on dealing with that type of thing in the workplace, please DM us, one of us, get us on Twitter or Instagram, and tell us who that person might be, because I think it would be really interesting to know some tips on how to deal with that. Maybe do you struggle with that problem? Is this just me that does that?
Yeah, and especially
Yeah, it's
when
just you.
no, it's just you. Especially when you're tired. I find that being tired affects it a lot. We talked about this at lunch yesterday, but this, as I said, this daylight savings things, I haven't had as much sleep this week, and I'm far more prone to be distracted by the bright shiny email that comes through, which is not good. Okay, so reactive emailing
Yeah,
waste your time.
waste of time.
You're in the process. I suppose you're in the process of eliminating that, or working to.
Yeah, just becoming aware of it was just
Right.
like the first step, and then, being aware that it's a thing that you can do or not do. And then
Yeah.
it was much better once I was like, nope, finishing this, then I will consider that. And even a few times this week, I rescheduled things to make it possible to complete tasks. So
Yeah.
that's great. It's a bit of a pain for, I try not to reschedule things if I can help it. But it's in service of the task of not wasting time and energy. Was great. I also replaced the news that I talked about last week, where I was saying that I sometimes find that I get into these media phases where I'm always looking at the news and it's just a waste of time. So this week, instead of finishing work at night and then just going on news sites or social media or whatever, I went for a walk. And I religiously went for a
Ooh.
walk because of the step counter that I mentioned last week. But I went for a walk every night, and I tried not to always be talking on the phone or listening to a podcast or, just being quiet. And it really,
Yeah.
really helped. And it just like felt like a positive use of my time. So I would like to keep that up. And on those walks, I sometimes found myself to be ruminating
Right.
when there
Which
is
which
silence.
Sarah mentioned
Mhm.
in when we spoke to her about, because I was talking about how great showers are, because they give you that opportunity to chill, and she said, yeah, but oftentimes when people are in that situation, they do often ruminate.
Yeah. And to me, the thing that I was ruminating about was, second guessing things like,
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
I, what a waste of time. I wish I could stop doing that and just be like, I'm just doing it, whatever the consequences, deal with them
Uh-huh.
when they happen or if they don't. So that's kind of something that I noticed. How about you?
Well, this might not surprise you, but I determined the thing that wastes my time the most is being on the train going into the city. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Oh, yikes. And I do try to be efficient with it, but you're still limited because you're on a train. So I have started to work toward scheduling less time in the city. So my for example, my schedule for mid-November onward, I'm really concentrating what I'm doing in the city when I go in to just try to stop to go in as often. But some of it's unavoidable, and I'll just have to accept that. And then also, yeah, I focused on ruminating. It was just a useful bit to be like, oh, you're doing it, so just don't. And
Mhm.
largely, I think that has been helpful and will continue to be. So they're good challenges. I think for me, it showed that they're like, no matter how much you do really work to improve your lives, there are structural things that will, get in the way. So me having to, we made the decision to move out of Toronto about 5 years ago, and with that decision comes a consequence of having to be stuck on the train a day or two a week, to go in and do work there. That's a structure in my life that I can't necessarily change a lot. It does waste time, but I'll do my best with it, and whatever. So good challenge, useful. These things I am very glad we're doing, because having to be accountable to you, the listeners, is helpful for at least me. I can't speak for you, Darlene, but to make sure that I am practicing these things and thinking about them and trying to adjust as I can. So this has really been good.
Well, and it's so important because we're trying, we're not saying we're the be all and end all. We know how to do these things. We're sort of like, okay, here are some things we're going to try. We're going to work on them. We're going to see if they are helpful. And
Yeah.
if they are, we will share what we've learned.
Yeah.
Very much fellow, we're all we're suggesting going on the journey, I guess, and then we're trying to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
I am noticing real improvements though. I mean, even in the last, and just realizing again, in the first episode, we talked about setting your baseline and figuring out like, where am I? Am I happy? Like,
Yeah.
am I functioning well? Are all of these parts of my life kind of interacting as I wish that they would and as I would hope that they would? And once you start there, you realize, no, there are some things that I would like to improve, even though I'm constantly trying to improve things. And there are things that I've kind of put the pen down on, as I say, where I'm like, right now I'm not working on that. I'm working on these other things. So it's great.
What a great way to transition, Darlene, because we have moved from that like inward looking wellness focused chapter of this season, and now we're moving to like a concentrated focus on how to improve our personal lives. So we're talking about relationships, finances, conflict management, like really kind of more tangible outward sort of pieces. And so today we are talking about fostering and benefiting from relationships. I saw a quote that I absolutely love, and I think it might be the one, like my new favorite quote of at least this calendar quarter.
Oh my God. This quarter's
working
quote.
a lot. You can tell I'm drafting a lot.
Yes,
having to talk about quarters. Yeah. Sorry. So anyway, this is a Harvard happiness expert, Daniel Gilbert. And his quote is this: "We are happy when we have family. We are happy when we have friends. And almost all the other things we think make us happy are actually just ways of getting more family and friends." Which is perfect. I think it's absolutely perfect. It's true that you want people close to you and you want those people to love you. And then I think that's why we get drawn to, trying to have big flashy things so people will want to come and be drawn close to us. But the big flashy things don't actually provide you the happiness. It's just the relationships. And I think that's a great way for, that Mr. Gilbert has, made it so clear. Chasing the flashy stuff you think is going to get you the friends and family. But if you actually just focus on the friends and family, you have what you need. You don't have to go in this roundabout route that actually is inefficient.
You also can, I don't know, sometimes if you chase the wrong thing, you attract the wrong friends too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about the wrong family. You have the family you have. But it is true that if you pursue sort of material things as a means to make relationships, then you get relationships with people who care about material things, and it's a little bit of a vicious cycle.
Or you're working counterproductively, right? Like, a professional might think, I need a big house in a great neighborhood so my family is happy.
Right.
But then you're stuck working to pay for that big house in the great neighborhood and you don't see your family. Now, if you're focused on making your family happy, the thing that will make them happy is being with them and not necessarily having this great house in this great neighborhood. It might help. But likely if you were to ask, your partner or your child, you can have me never being around or this more modest home. Which would you prefer? At least what the statistics say is that people would prefer you to be around
and present, and having worked on the relationship throughout life. And that's true. That's a good quote. I love that guy's job also. Happiness.
I know
expert.
he's the Harvard. I know. Get out of town with that. Okay, so a couple other great stats about why relationships are important, and then we're gonna kind of get a bit deeper. So interesting stuff. There's a relationship study. It focused on men only, which is so not so good. It's called the Grant Study, and it found that the only thing that matters in life are your relationships to other people when it comes to happiness. There's an interesting one in the Journal of Social Economics, and it states that if you were to figure out how much your relationships are worth, financially, relationships are worth more than $100,000, having good relationships. An interesting way to look at the financial-ish equivalent of having good relationships. And then this is a great one called the Longevity Project, and it looked at, people live for a long time do they live for a long time because they have great relationships? And actually, so that's what they were trying to figure out. And what they found was it's not just about having a bunch of great relationships. It's being a person within those relationships that helps others, advises and cares for others. And that tended to have people live to old age. So some interesting scientific pieces here on why relationships really are truly super important. They make us happy. If we do it right, we could live to a longer age because of it. What a great magic pill.
A magic pill. Well, and the other thing is, I guess we should probably explain, when we're thinking about relationships, really what we're trying to do is just say, okay, you can do all of your own personal development, but then you still are both affected by the people that you are surrounded with, and then you affect them as well. But like to your point about the value of relationships, how you can realize that it's not all about like one person. It's not me. It's the good fortune that I have to be surrounded by so many wonderful people, and that's just, and thinking of those people as not just like, oh, they'll be there no matter how hard I work or, what choices I make or how bad my behavior is. It's like, no, they're there. They're part of this. They're part of my success. They're part of who I am. They're part of what I do. And I need to honor those relationships somehow. So that's why I kind of thought this was like the 5th episode for us in this season.
So I think focusing on what relationships do for us, humans are social animals. It gives us that needed sense of belonging, a mirror perhaps to see ourselves back, and a way to feel like we're part of something more than just going to the office every day and plugging away. In my case, as you can tell, at drafting agreements, as I have been doing it a lot this week. It is the essence of life. So what, Darlene, would you say that relationships do for you?
The thing that I most get from my relationships, support, massive. I have good friends in my circle who will say to me, no to that thing. And like, good job on, a lot of my friends are like, great pod. In the early days, I have one friend who was like, love the podcast. Actually, I have 2 friends who were like, love the podcast, keep doing it. Right when we most needed to hear that, when you're just starting a creative project, it's vulnerable. That kind of thing is just, I don't know what the value of that is. I think it's more than $100,000 a year. And then I would say the other thing is just to bring it back to something fun outside work. That, you're not always talking about work. You're not always doing responsible things. You've go.
What do you do with your friends?
Well, when I say responsible things, oh my God.
You're doing irresponsible things, I suppose.
If you saw us out, my group of friends, we would look highly responsible. We would.
I believe that.
But I meant like not thinking about household responsibilities is more what I meant.
Oh, okay. That's very fun. Taking a step back, we've established relationships are important. We've talked about what they do for us, all these great things that we gobble up from our relationships. But what is the key to relationships really is being somebody who also gives, like doesn't just take. And this needs to be, I think, in our world, and being our world, quote unquote, being like we're our professional people that have demands in our professional world. We have demands outside of that. Many of those are about servicing and making sure our relationships are good. And so what is the best way to approach that? Do we need to be strategic in thinking about how do we best service our relationships? Do we need to apply things that we've learned that are more traditional in the professional space into the relationship space? Darlene, you're the expert. You are the guru.
Absolutely not. I am definitely just trying to always just improve. I would say the thing is, I guess that it's a feedback loop. Like when I say that relationships for me are about growth, I learn so much from the people that are around me. And I try to always use interactions for helping me and helping them. And at the end of the day, I hope that works. And if it doesn't, I think in any one situation, it still is the approach. And I have found in my long years that the approach does most of the time work, and it's important. It's worth it, right? Like good actions have some halo effects, and bad actions have halo effects too that are negative. So
Halos just like bottom halos, not top halos.
like bad halos,
Bad, like a weight, like a really heavy halo around your foot.
like
halo.
a puddle. I don't know, something other than a halo. Anyway, but yeah, that's kind of my take. I'm interested in your take since you're one of the people in my circle here.
By nature of just us having to do this podcast, by nature of us doing this, excitedly doing this podcast, choosing every day, waking up and saying,
What shall we podcast about?
Yeah. No, but I think that I benefit greatly from the exchange that we have of ideas of how to self-improve. And I think that this whole thing that we have started with the podcast, and you were obviously doing for many years before, and something I've just recently come along to, this whole idea of making yourself better. And if it even starts at like, I need to get better at work, I just find that so many of the same practices make you better in your personal life and make your relationships better. So I've been focusing a lot on how I can like maintain the right amount of energy for the day, like, and not crash. And because I used to have huge energy crashes at certain points in the day, largely right when like I put the pen down at the end of the day at work, and then boom, and that had a couple problems because I was headed down energy from probably like noon onward at work. But also then I'm tapped out by the time I get home and spend time with my family or friends. And that has a negative, obviously, effect on my relationship. I can't be as good of a giver in that situation. And so by focusing on maintaining full energy throughout the day and the things that I have to do to get myself there, I have solved... Well, I haven't solved it. And like, it's not perfect, but like I've gotten better at having full energy throughout the workday, but then also just keeping a great level of energy during my times that I'm not working. And that's been great.
Well, I was just going to say what's so heartening for me to hear about that, though, is that it's because it's a focus, right? It's like you're trying to have equal energy for family and work. That's why you're doing it. And I think you can burn like a whole decade of not doing that and thinking that it's okay to have lots of energy for work. And of course, you're too tired to be nice to your family.
But I think that that's like, certainly that's part of my intent. But I think you could actually, if you were just a person that like came into reading about your being a better professional, being like being a high performer at work only, you're going to, there'll be great spillover effects as well.
Right.
So I mean, like everybody has their different priorities, and so I just think the nice thing is like self-improvement is self-improvement full stop, and that it can actually have spillovers into so many places. Obviously we're talking about relationships today, and so that's why I'm giving that example, but I've just been really excited by that thing that like, oh, I didn't even think that this would be a positive result, but because I'm moving toward a positive place in a different area of my life, I'm getting this secondary kind of positive result, which has been great, which has been good.
Well, and as you go through the process, the final thing I would say on this is that there is this great quote that says you are, I'm going to always get it wrong.
What you eat? Is it you are what you eat?
No, similar to that, but you are basically the best of the 5 top people you hang out with. Effectively. So if the 5 people you see most are really low energy, you will have a really hard time breaking free into like a high performance, authentic lifestyle. It's very challenging to do that if you're constantly surrounded by people who don't support you, have different goals. So, becoming mindful, back to Sarah Robertson's points, being mindful of these things and the impact and, whether you're that low energy person to someone else too, by the way. It's not all about like ourselves. Anyway, that's one thing just to consider.
Well, I think that brings an interesting point that you and I have differed on a bit. And I think I'm more on your side than I was from the outset, because we talked about like being really intentional with your relationships and who you surround yourself with, how you kind of govern your relationships, like kind of focusing on outcomes. And at first I was really just like, as I said, I like to just like go and hang out with my friends and talk about nothing and not drive to like a specific, efficiency or something. But what I'm now realizing is the outcome I want is the fun and laughter. So I really am driving to an outcome. Yeah. What I'm saying is, Darlene, as always, you're right. I was not right.
I don't know that that's true. I think you're just at a different stage of, I think you become more demanding about these things as you get older and have less.
No, I'm totally there with you too. I think that when we first had the conversation, obviously outside of the podcast, about like, you need to make sure that your friendships are serving you in this certain way. Not serving, but like you're getting what you need from your relationships in this certain way. I was really hesitant to accept that idea. But what I've now realized is that I was just looking at it not at outcome, but at like the process getting to the outcome. And I just like this process. So why do I have to dictate outcome? And now that I'm seeing that they're one and the same. So, but I'm in the same place. I mean, I don't have enough time to see all the people that I would love to see and spend time with the people I want to see. So when you do it, you want it to be fruitful. And I think that's a good point. The way that you get that fruit is by planting them seeds, watering them plants, and then tending to them. So I think that like at our age, we have largely have seeds planted. We've been watering it and giving it sun and whatever, and now we still have to tend to the garden. And I love being a gardener in many ways. But you have to tend to the garden, serve your relationships, and figure out how you should shape them to make sure that everybody is getting what you need from them. Yeah.
So what should our challenge be this week?
Our challenge, I think, should be, and I already have. This is a bit selfish because I have a thing that I'm planning to do.
You're multitasking with the challenge?
But I haven't done it yet. Okay. I haven't done it yet. So, but it's in my head. I'm ruminating on it.
Okay, good.
Not ruminating. I'm thinking about I'm excited about this idea. So I think that the challenge is, think about a thing in your life as it pertains to relationships that is missing. Like something that you would like to grow, encourage, or make new in your life, in your relationship with a person or a relationship with your community. What's missing, and then what can you do to change that? Like, is there something you could implement? Is there something you can do to fill the hole? Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it's good. Okay.
I'm very excited to talk next week about my new idea.
Okay.
In this space.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we will discuss our goods and gripes. The Lawyer Life Podcast is brought to you by Inter Alia Law. Inter Alia lawyers have big firm training, in-house experience, and a wide range of expertise in technology, media, and entertainment. Our advice is business-focused, speedy, and practical. To learn more, visit interalialaw.com. That's interalialaw.com. And we are back with our goods and gripes. Goods are things that we want to promote and support, and gripes are things that annoy us. Can I just say before I turn to you, Darlene, I listened to that ad as I always do during the ad break. What a buttery voice I deliver that ad with. The Lawyer Life Podcast is brought to you by Inter Alia Law. Very, it's very buttery. It's like
I had not thought of the term buttery, but I do appreciate the. I do appreciate it. It is quite buttery.
It feels like if I had a twin, that's how my twin would sound.
Totally.
He'd be very formal and he'd wear suits.
You're more buttery twin.
It's very nice to meet you. Hello.
Well, as we heard yesterday from feedback from a listener, you're mesmerizing. Your voice is mesmerizing. So
that's
perhaps they meant the ad or just generally.
Mesmerizing. Do you know the origin of that word? Mesmer?
No.
Who was like a hypnotist?
Oh.
He's like figured out hypnotism or something.
What a random fact. Constantly surprise me.
From university.
That is super random. Why don't, in honor of your buttery voiced ad, why don't you go first today, which is unusual?
Okay, Darlene, I'll mention my good and my gripe. My good, actually, I think he has a good voice. Somebody with a good voice. I've watched the first half of the Seth Meyers, his new comedy special, Lobby Baby. Holy smokes! Laugh out loud, riot.
Okay.
Having a great
What's
time.
it called?
Lobby Baby, because it's about how he and his wife, and he goes through this in the special, but his wife, they've had 2 children. She's birthed 2 children, and she gives birth to kids super fast. And by result, her second kid was born in the lobby of their apartment building. And it's a very amusing story. And they have 2 boys, and they're happy and healthy. But he called it Lobby Baby because of that experience, which he does a great job of delivering and giving out credit to his amazing wife, who, as he mentions, I won't spoil any other jokes, but he mentions that he didn't really help much in this hyper fast birthing process, that she, quote, Lion King'd her own baby. She basically caught her own baby and then raised it above her head.
Okay, thank you for the recommendation, because I, as you know,
great.
barely ever watch things on Netflix, but I always take your comedy suggestions because I love watching comedy specials. I just don't have the patience to find out if they're actually funny. To watch them and decide. I like to know beforehand that they're really funny.
This is a lot of comedy specials have dips, ups and downs, or start slow or something. He starts and he goes, and it's just it's really great. The pacing is perfect. Super fun. My gripe is, I don't know. I had 2. I'll just say one briefly, and then I'll use the other one. Phone zombies. These people who just stop in the middle of walking somewhere because they're on their phone and they're all of a sudden distracted. This happened to me this weekend. That griped me up. I was so gripey. But the other main gripe, and we talked about this, rude lawyers. Holy smokes! Can we just be nice and civil? Don't yell. Just yelling. I had a. Anyway, Don't yell is the rule. Be a nice person. Even if we have to negotiate with each other, just don't yell. It's hilarious to me why people think that that's a useful device. But goodness gracious.
Goodness gracious.
That's my gripe.
Goodness gracious.
Get out of town.
We don't love the yelling. And it definitely, I think in Canada, it's very rare to have yelling on any call for any reason. So I do think it's a cultural
Which
thing.
I agree with and accept, and maybe this person was not from Canada. Okay. Let's just say that.
All right. Well, I don't have a gripe this week, per se.
Well, I had 2, so perfect.
You double griped, so I'll leave it at that. But I do have a good, and this is a music-related good. I love Michael Kiwanuka. He is just the ultimate weekend morning listen. He's like a soul. I don't know. It's hard to define his music, but anyway, I saw him years ago when he was just starting out. He had won the Mercury Prize, I think, in London or in England, and just an awesome throwback to old soul music. I'm a big fan of Otis Redding and old soul stuff. Yeah. And his music is just from another era, it feels like, but it's got Danger Mouse as the producer, so it's also got a really modern feel. Anyway, wonderful. So wonderful that I have actually purchased tickets to see him in concert with a good friend of mine. And we are going to brave the winter down by the waterfront to see him play in February. Ooh. So that is how much I like his
Wait, it's not outdoors.
No, but you have to go down to the waterfront, which I always find to be so cold. It's not outdoors. But
it's in an indoor venue that you have to...
In the darkness of winter...
Yeah, you're going to take
going out at 7 or 8 at night into
Yes.
The freezing cold.
Is it a school night?
It's like a Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah, this
is a big commitment. And he probably won't come on until 10 and, So I just have nothing but wonderful things to say about this album. He has a new album. It's out just recently, and then his other albums from before that are awesome as well. So
you Insta-storied about it on the Inter Alia.
If you only knew how many times I wanted to post about music on the Inter Alia Insta story, you would. I have so many album covers saved as things that I'm listening to, but it's really not the place for all of it. But since I don't waste my time and energy on personal social media. That's the only place that it can go. So, lovely album. Highly recommend. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, great chat as always. Very grateful for this relationship that we have not only with you, Darlene, but the listener. And let's continue to tend to that garden of relation. Wait. Tend to that garden of... Wait. I'm trying to do my buttery voice.
I don't think you can duplicate it.
Tend to that garden of relationship.
That was like your movie voiceover voice. It
I
wasn't
wish I
bad.
could do
It
that.
wasn't bad. That could be another.
In a world
That could be your third career.
where relationships...
Lawyer, podcaster, voiceover artist. Huh?
I mean, I'll
Pretty
take
good.
it. Give me the work.
Anyway, we will talk soon.
Okay. Bye. That's it for this week's episode of LLP. Thanks to Inter Alia Law for presenting the podcast and to Nick Fowler for composing and performing our music. See our show notes for his website. Don't forget, we love feedback. Please comment in the review section or subscribe or like. We'd appreciate it greatly. That's it. Talk soon.